Hi everyone, it's Jerry. I have an instructive game to share with you from the Top Chess Engine Championship Season 28 Bonus Edition. On the white end, Stockfish playing against Leela Chess 0. They're playing a group of 100 games. This is game 73. It was played September 19th, and the time controls are 30 minutes each with a 3-second increment. We're looking at the Slav Defense. We're not at the start position just yet. It's not too far away. Queen c2 interferes with one of the bishop's moves. Forget about f5. b5 met with b3. My main takeaway, what I found most instructive with this game was the pawn play. This is one simple example. With b3, the c-pawn retains its options. Maybe a capture on b5 or d5 or door number 3. Invasive pawn on c5. Bishop g4, knight g to e2, and the next move we see is e6. Now at the top, the computer likes g6. There's a significant difference between the two. Once e6 is in, the bishop can forget about any retreat squares towards the queen side. After e6, it is all in. On the king side, you're either backing off or capturing the knight when questioned. If g6 is played and this knight goes to g3, the computer's looking at h5, and if questioned, the bishop can fall back. White is not necessarily going to force the exchange of knight for light square bishop. All right, we have e6, knight g3, and bishop d6 brings us to our start position for this game. The first move of this one, Stockfish goes with bishop d3. Now, if h3 is played, that's where we would see a knight for light square bishop exchange. h3, bishop h5, and the exchanges occur on h5. Stockfish goes with more development. Bishop d3 it is. Knight h5. At this point, we're not going to see the knight for light square bishop exchange. If the bishop is questioned, white would experience a problem on g3. So, we see the decision now with the c-pawn. Space with tempo. Bishop c7. And this next move I really like. The timing here. After this structure is in here, after this pawn is up on c5, the natural pawn break for black is going to be e5, but white is kind of saying, I'm there first. I'm going to hit you in the center before you hit me. We see here e4. Now, we're going to see how it plays out after e4 soon enough. I tested out a different move. I wondered, well, is it necessarily important to go with e4 at this moment? What if you were to make a more routine-like move, something that seems perfectly natural, like castles? White would experience a problem. This here being the problem. Knight takes knight, and how do you recapture? If you go towards the center, keep a nice healthy pawn island of 8, this is a very strong idea. This is a very dangerous bishop, a bishop that almost feels like it is unopposed, given that this one is hemmed inside of white's pawn chain. If you go in the other direction, this is a real sore spot for white, and there is now no guarantee that you can get in e4 because black is on move and can play f5, clamping down on this very break. This here remains a possibility for black. So this is a reason or two why we don't see this routine-like castles at this moment. We have here e4. Black's response is queen h4. Now, this tension right here remains for quite a while, nearly 15 moves. Neither side bites. Why is that the case? Well, let's test it out right here. Black is on move. Why is black not taking on e4? Well, it would be helpful for the knight. The knight recaptures and immediately coordinates with this pawn right here. This is a real sore spot for black, that d6 square. Note, this pawn here would be a very dangerous pawn to take. Queen takes d4, white is already considered winning. Bishop b2 is there. What are you doing with the queen? If there's a check, you're cool going uncastled. Where's the queen going? If she is going to move, you go back home. There's knight takes knight, bishop captures pawn, and there's even fancy moves. Let's say the queen stays central, goes to d5 or maybe even d7 in both cases. There's bishop takes g7, meeting knight takes bishop with knight f6, landing a fork, winning the queen. So, not a good idea to capture on e4 and help out this knight. Another detail, this is a pretty cool line. I wondered a little bit about f5. Where are we going with the knight? You're diving into d6, with the point here being you can follow up with f3. This bishop is experiencing a problem. In the case of knight takes knight, pawn takes, queen takes, you block with the queen. You're cool with the queen exchange. This bishop is out of squares. Rook covers. Bishop h5. All right. My point, not a good idea to release the tension and help this knight improve. We have instead queen h4. Why doesn't white release the tension? There's an issue on g3. There's a pin on the h file, knight ready to be swiped. You can't take with the h-pawn then. F takes g, there's bishop takes g. Problem here. So this is the moment we now see castles. And it may look a little scary here. Bishop knifing down, knight nearby, bishop, queen, but things are solid for white. The knight is a sturdy defender, and these pawns all remaining on home base reinforce this point really well. There's no attack here for black. Follow up, knight d7. I tested out something else. I wondered what's happening if this knight is given a kick with b4, how it plays out. After knight d7, we see b4. So there won't be a b4 by black. What if black is giving the knight a kick? Where is it going? Forward to a4, and even if this knight covers b6, you're still diving in. It's very dangerous to invite the knight into b6 while this king is still uncastled. If black is chopping away, there's going to be a big problem on c6. So the knight is not given a nudge, invited forward. We have instead more development, knight d7, and from here, b4. This is maybe another moment we could briefly test out why this tension isn't resolved. There's no longer going to be a problem with some pin on the h-file. Why doesn't white resolve the tension here? It may seem a bit appealing to play in this way because there is now this half open or completely opened file. A downside with this is that the bishop has a little bit more air. It has a new square here on e6. We're going to see that this bishop really ends up being a struggling piece in this game. If there's a check, the bishop can block. All right, not a good idea to initiate the exchange. Open up a square for this piece. We have instead b4, which paves the way for a4, and there won't be a b4 move in reply. The a file is ready to spring open after a4 is in there. From here we have castles. I tested out a different move. Rather than castles, the first move I think about if I'm playing here is black. If I see b4, my knee-jerk reaction to that is, okay, let me go with a5. Let me hit you before you get in this. I want to open the file for my rook. There's a big problem playing in this way. You ready for this? This is where you would now see the tension resolved. A strong follow-up to a5, a winning idea, would be to take on d5, and after e takes d5, to play bishop captures b5. And after pawn captures bishop, knight captures d5 is crushing. Bishop hit, e-file open. Nothing exciting is happening here on the king side. These king side pawns and pieces I have highlighted sort of offset one another. This is a monster piece. This here, tremendous as well. Connected passed pawns. Decisive advantage here for white. Queen e4 check is in the air. You wouldn't even be able to block. Your queen would hang. Big problems for black if black is trying to meet b4 with a5. We have instead castles, and white is there first. a4 on board. Knight f4. Bishop takes knight. Bishop takes bishop. Rook on f to e1. The white rooks are superior in a wonderful spot. With this tension here, white gets to decide when the files open up. That is a very nice positive. From here it is g6, no dark square bishop for white. Nice flight square for the king. Also, this construction tames the battery. Knight f1. There is now a threat. It's addressed with bishop h6, h3, bishop h5. This bishop is struggling. Doesn't have any retreat squares. It sees these squares here, but they're all under control. It's an out-of-play piece, a non-factor, easily worked around. Follow-up is knight h2, bishop f4. The follow-up is knight f1. We're going to see some moves repeated here. Why isn't white responding to bishop f4 with g3 in this case? It's because the bishop will sacrifice itself and black will get 3 pawns in return. Calls it equal in the end after king h1, queen captures pawn, around equal. Note queen g2 is not an option. The bishop would hang. Okay, this is why we're not seeing g3 here. We see knight f1, repeat a little bit, and at this stage, Stockfish, not interested in the threefold repetition draw, plays bishop f1. Okay, this is now maybe back on. Now that h3 would be defended. This is where black now stirs up trouble. Plays with a5. Now if you're going for g3, we could see these sacrifices on g3. b4 is going to hang in the end. All right, let's see how the tension resolves here on the queen side. A takes b5. A takes b4, knight a2. All right, the knight has been kicked from its central post. Now this knight is interested in targeting e4. Follow-up is knight takes b4. If pawn takes pawn, knight recaptures, hangs on to that pawn. Knight takes b4, knight takes e4, and from here we have knight d3. There's a potential problem on f2 if you don't play in this way. For instance, if knight captures c6, there's knight captures f2. With the point here, queen takes knight, bishop captures knight. The king is deflected from its defense, would be deflected from its defense of the queen. So some security here over f2, knight d3 it is. Follow-up, pawn captures pawn, knight captures bishop, queen captures knight, and now g4. A bishop here officially squashed. Let's see how black tries to stir up trouble. Black's now going to be down, playing down the piece. Bishop collected, queen given a kick. She has a responsibility. Plays to b2 here. If you take the pawn, You're asking for queen captures f2 and knight g3, and you'll have to give up the queen. All right, so we have here queen b2, pawn takes pawn. There's an open file. All right, bishop d3. Let's get rid of this annoying knight. Pair of rooks off. Rook b8. There goes the knight. Rook b1. King h8. f3. Okay, this here is right around the corner. Black's minor or major pieces knifing in. f3 cuts off the queen. Follow up, queen c2. Now, in the case of rook g8 check, it says hide in the corner. Things are cool there. All right, black goes with queen c2. You cannot take the queen here. What we have is knight f1. If queen takes queen, pawn takes, rook takes rook, king g7, there's no stopping the pawn. Also, if rook c1, there's rook b1, a pin of the rook. That's going to be a win for black. Knight is out of position to successfully stop the pawn. So this queen is poisoned. We have knight f1. Now, this is an idea. After pawn takes, rook here, rook b1 is no longer pinning the rook to the king. Follow-up is queen d3. If there is a check, this looks a little scary, to be sure. After the check, you go to the corner. Queen g2 is not mate, queen covering that. Also, in the case of queen g6 with this line, how do you defend queen g1? How do you tame this battery? Not with queen f2. Queen has a responsibility to defend the rook. The move here would be knight h2, and the rook will cover g1. Okay, black's play from here after knight f1 is queen d3, king f2. This one's going to simplify quite a bit. Black now collecting both pawns. After queen b4, we're going to see a queen exchange now. I tested out a different move. Rook a2 check. This doesn't go anywhere for black. Just would leave black vulnerable. In response to rook a2, you can move forward. The knight would be poisoned. Queen f8 is checkmate. Also, in the case of h4 check, there's queen captures h4. Queen captures knight, there's queen f6 check. And after king g8, rook b8 is checkmate. Also, in the case of queen c7 check, you can simply block with f4. And soon the queen is going to be, the white queen that is going to be fantastic on d4. Perfect piece there. Okay, black does not go for the check on a2. We see a queen exchange. And the plan here, if you're playing as black, is try to find a way to eliminate these two pawns and bring it to a point where it's a rook and king versus rook, knight, and king. Easier said than done. Stockfish is just not allowing it. This pawn is always going to end up being around. So let's see the technique from here. This one carries on for several more moves. Let's see the piece improvements, king improving, rook improving, king improving again. This is the main pawn to watch over, the passed pawn. And it's not able to go too far here. Knight improvement, as soon as that square is available, targeting the rook. Now circling into e5. It's one pawn versus 5, but you're just not getting rid of this pawn. This one's under control. These two really just count as one. There's a big problem here. Black's ready to get mated with this arrangement. So the king takes a step out, f7 falling, knight landing a timely check, and priority here, the furthest advanced pawn. Let's reel that one in. Down for the count. Next up, let's make sure this pawn doesn't kill us. Easy enough to address. Let's get out of any pins. The knight has this one under control. Improve the rook. Nice next couple moves here. Target an unprotected pawn. It's defended. Targeted unprotected pawn. It's defended. And rook e5. What is this rook doing? Being a rook. Functioning in both directions. A pawn will fall shortly. The e pawn in this case with check. And from here, not too many more moves. Everything is under control. And after rook e6, rook captures rook. This one comes to an end. Stockfish awarded the win. 6 figures or less. This is a table base victory for white. Now, if this one carried on, okay, this is a simple winning method. Scoot the king over. Eventually, you'll have access to g5, collect the pawn, and smooth sailing from there. Very nice game. Out of this Slav Defense, as mentioned, I really like the pawn play in particular with this one. Anyhow, what are your thoughts with it? Feel free, as usual, to leave any feedback to this video in the comment section below. I hope you enjoyed it and maybe took a thing or two away. That's all for now. Take care.